So I've got to be honest, I've wanted to watch the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance TV show on Netflix, but I haven't gotten to it yet because I showed a little bit of Dark Crystal stuff to my daughter, and she was not interested, and I just feel like it's weird that I watch this show without her. Like, she's the right age, she should enjoy this show with me, but she's just not into it for whatever reason. So I'm playing the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Tactics on my Nintendo Switch, and I gotta tell you, I am completely lost. The plot is all over the frickin' place in this game because it's very much tied to the TV show. And I have to say that if you are not a fan of the Dark Crystal or the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, your patience with this game is going to run out. Now, the TV show is a prequel to the movie, the Jim Henson classic film from the 80s, which was something I didn't love back then, but I actually watched it recently and thought it was incredible. This show has events and characters that take place before the events of the film, with lots of different characters popping up. And the story is projected at you not through cut sequences, which would have been the preferred, because even though it would have spoiled some stuff from the show, at least it would have brought you into the show a little bit better. And I was thinking of the other strategy game that Netflix just recently brought out to different platforms, that Narcos game, which was also a turn-based strategy game, and it did a better job at, emulating the tone and the feel and the mood and the music of Narcos. But of course, I was more familiar with that show than I am with the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. This game's got some great elements. It's a beefy game. It's got some depth to it. There are different classes. You've got soldiers, you've got healers, you've got different jobs that you can level up, and the scouts can have a secondary job title as a healer, for example, and each one of those will give you a bunch of different abilities. You've got a pretty robust radial menu that you've got to pick your specific move from, so you can actually move, or you can attack, or you can have a projectile attack, or you can heal different units and stuff like that. And each one of the jobs that each of your characters has will give you different options on your radial menu. And so you're tinkering quite a bit, which is pretty cool, and you do have to kind of rely on specific characters. And the thing about this game is that if you don't play all of your characters, you're not leveling everybody up, and you're not making them more powerful, you're not gaining all of the cool loot, although you can share the loot that a more powerful character earns with a lesser powerful character. So you're spending a lot of time in menus, and I've got some quibbles there. But what was impressive is that there is quite a bit of depth in here, and you're constantly gaining members to your party, and you're using 4 or 5 of them at a time, so you're able to kind of mix and match and learn the skill set and try out different things. It's not as elegant as some of the other turn-based strategy titles that I've played, where you can kind of, screw up and then replay a section very quickly, very easily. You're going to have to kind of restart whole battles over again, and if you pick the wrong group of characters for the specific environment, like you're constantly getting, poisoned or something like that, or beat up by a particular boss Skeksis, you're going to have to go back in and try it again and again, which is okay. I mean, that's par for the course with turn-based strategy titles. And I think it does a pretty decent job at delivering the brain stimulation that you want, and, the variety that you want from the types of matches that you're going to go out on. It's not just wipe out all of your enemies. Sometimes you're rescuing people. Sometimes you're battling against a big boss. Sometimes you're trying to get across the board and just get to the escape point with a bunch of different characters. Sometimes you've got an agenda to keep specific characters alive, and if those characters die, then you've got to start over again. You know the deal. If you've played any turn-based strategy game before, you're going to be familiar with a lot of the, the tenets of this game as well. The one, I think, major flaw with this game is that you spend a lot of time in the menus like you do in any strategy title. You think of a game like Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is just so damn elegant and so big and so robust, and every part of that game is tuned and polished, so it doesn't ever feel laborious to go in and tinker with your different characters. That's not the case here. Every time you pop into a character and you say you want to put a different outfit on the character, or like different armor or different trinkets or different weapons or whatever, you've got to back out, a couple places back in the menu, pick another character, bounce in again, cycle between your characters and go back in again. It just becomes a giant kind of time suck. And the fact is, well, when you have that radial menu, when you're out on the battlefield, I was constantly pressing the wrong thing because the analog thumbstick was going in the wrong direction, and I'd have to undo that move and do the move again, and all of it sort of artificially lengthened the experience instead of it just being a great kind of ease on board and enjoy the tactility of it all and the brain tease elements of it all, which I appreciate. There were just cumbersome little glitches along the way. And then you couple that with the fact that the story is convoluted for somebody that's coming in from the outside, which is admittedly where I was from, and I know that this is definitely going to appeal to fans first before just fans of, a tactical strategy game. But I also feel that that's kind of a missed opportunity, both for the game as an onboard into the show, but just as a game that stands apart in the turn-based strategy genre. This should exist fine as just a game you would want to play because it has cool characters in it. And unfortunately, I don't quite think that it does. And it doesn't distinguish itself enough from the vast amount of competition, both kind of more recent releases, but there's a huge legacy of great turn-based strategy titles for people to go out and peruse as well. And as cool as this is to be connected to the Dark Crystal, I think it's very limited. And I admire also Netflix's determination to get into this video game space. I think this is cool. I think that we're getting licensed games that are pretty good, with the Stranger Things game, with the Narcos game, and with this game as well. They're on the right tack here, but I feel like they should not just serve the license, they should serve the player, and they should be games that work in partnership with the linear stuff that they're producing for sure, but also say to players that these are great games if you've never seen these shows. I feel like this game does the worst job at being friendly to just the casual observer of this stuff. So my caveat is, if you're already in and you love the Dark Crystal or you love the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, I think you're going to get a lot more enjoyment out of this. I think that this is leaning towards mediocrity compared to a lot of other turn-based strategy titles out there, but I was also surprised and pleasantly entertained by a lot of the good qualities of this title as well. So I'm going to come in with a 6 out of 10 for the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Tactics. And man, that's a mouthful.